Won't yield the floor here. Okay, what do we got? Mr. President, on behalf of the Majority Leader, there will be no further roll call votes today. The next roll call vote is expected on Monday at 5:30 p.m. And with that, I would yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
We are.
I would ask consent that it be terminated.
Without objection.
I have a cloture motion at the desk.
The clerk will report the cloture motion.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, hereby move to bring to a close the debate on S-23, the American Invents Act, signed by 18 senators as follows. Reed of Nevada,
Mr.
Leahy.
President, I would ask unanimous consent that names not be read.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent to vote on the motion to invoke cloture occur immediately upon disposition of the judicial nominations in executive session on Monday, March 7th. Further, the mandatory quorum under Rule 22 be waived.
Without objection.
I would ask unanimous consent that we proceed to a period of morning business. Senators allowed to speak therein for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
I ask consent that we proceed to S-Res 89.
The clerk will report.
S-Res 89, relating to the death of Frank W. Buckles, the longest surviving United States veteran of the First World War.
Is there objection to proceeding to the measure?
I ask unanimous
Without objection, the Senate will
Thank you,
proceed.
Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, motion reconsider be laid on the table, there be no intervening action or debate. Any statements relating to this matter be placed in the record as if read.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I had the good fortune a short time ago when we had a ceremony here in the rotunda of the Capitol to meet him, to talk to him. It was just a short time ago. It was amazing that he had the vitality that he did at such an old age. So I'm happy this matter has been completed today. I ask consent that we now proceed to S-Res 90.
The clerk will report.
S-Res 90, supporting the goals of International Women's Day and recognizing this year's centennial anniversary of International Women's Day.
Is there objection to proceeding to the measure? Without objection, the Senate will proceed.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, the motion reconsider be laid on the table with there be no intervening action or debate. Any statements relating to this matter be placed in the record in its appropriate place as if given.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask consent that we now proceed to S-Res 91.
The clerk will report.
S-Res 91, supporting the goals and ideals of Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week.
Is there objection to proceeding to the measure? Without objection, the Senate will proceed.
Thanks, Mr. President. I ask that the resolution be agreed to, preamble be agreed to, the motion reconsider be laid on the table. There be no intervening action or debate. Any statements relating to this matter be placed in the record at the appropriate place as if given.
Without objection.
Now I ask consent that we move to S-Res 92.
The clerk will report.
S-Res 92, to authorize the payment of legal expenses of Senate employees out of the contingent fund of the Senate.
Is there objection to proceeding to the measure? Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to. The motion reconsider be laid on the table. There be no intervening action or debate. Any statements relating to this resolution be placed in the record as if read.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to executive session to consider nominations, calendar number 35, 36, 37, 38, and 39. I'm sorry, Mr. President, that the nominations be confirmed, unblocked. The motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table, unblocked. There be no intervening action or debate, and no further motions be in order to any of these nominations. Any statements related to nominations be printed in the record, and the President be immediately notified of such action, and the Senate then resume legislative session.
Without objection, so ordered.
I ask, Mr. President, that on Monday, March 7th, 2011, at 4:30 p.m., the Senate proceed to executive session to consider the following nominations. Counters number 4, 32 and 33. That there be an hour of debate equally divided in the usual form. Upon the use or leading back of that time, calendar number 32 be confirmed and the Senate proceed to vote without intervening action or debate on calendar number 33 and calendar number 4 in that order. Motion reconsider be considered made and laid on the table. There be no intervening action or debate, and there be no further motions in order to any of these nominations. Any statements related to these nominations are printed on the record. President Obama will be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and the Senate then resume legislative session.
Without objection, so ordered.
I'm told there's a bill at the desk due for its first reading.
The senator is correct.
H.R. 4, an act to repeal the expansion of information reporting requirements for payments of $600 or more to corporations and for other purposes.
I ask for second reading on this matter in order to place the bill on the calendar, but under the provisions of Rule 14, I object to my own request.
The objection being heard, the bill will receive its second reading on the next legislative day.
Mr. President, I now ask unanimous consent that when the Senate completes its business today, it adjourn until 10 a.m. on Friday, March 4th. Following the prayer and the pledge, journal proceedings be approved to date. The morning hour be deemed expired. The time for the two leaders be reserved for the use later in the day. And that following any leader remarks, there be a period of morning business. The senators allowed to speak for 10 minutes each during that time.
Without objection.
Mr. President, as a result of cloture being filed on S-23, the American Invents Act, the filing deadline for first-degree amendments is at 1 p.m. tomorrow. Senators should expect a series of 3 roll call votes to begin at 5:30 p.m. on Monday. The first 2 votes will be on those judicial nominations we've already spoken of this evening, and the third vote will be on cloture on the American Invents Act. So if there's no further business to come before the Senate this evening, I ask that it adjourn under the provisions of S-Res 89 as a further mark of respect to the memory of Frank Buckles, the longest-serving United States veteran of World War I.
Under the previous order and pursuant to the provisions of Senate Resolution 89, the Senate stands adjourned until 10 a.m. on Friday, March 4th, 2011, and does so as a further mark of respect to the late Frank W. Buckles.
The Senate's gaveled out for the evening, but earlier today, members passed a measure that extends transportation programs through September 30th.